Alright everyone, welcome to the channel. So I had an interesting theory that I've been thinking about for the past day or so, and I wanted to show you my theory. So this is going to be, my hypothesis is that we are going to be pumping into next week and then dumping into the week after that, and let me show you why I think that based on previous evidence in the market. Now let's jump right into the video. For this video specifically, I'm going to be looking at higher time frames, and to be supporting my theory I'm going to be looking at the Bitcoin USD chart and also the Nasdaq. So let's jump right into the video. Now the first reason why I think we're going to be pumping into next week is if we look, we're on the weekly time frame here, what do we see? We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red weekly candles. Now why is this significant? I made a whole video about why I think this is significant earlier on today. It was one of my first Bitcoin videos, so I'm not going to go through everything about it, but to give you the short without going through the whole chart to show you that we haven't done this before, the fact of the matter is we have never put in more than 5 consecutive red weekly candles in a row. And obviously Sunday is tomorrow, it is Saturday today, we have not put in the weekly close. Hypothetically speaking, we could completely reverse by tomorrow. You know, we could be at 55,000 and we wouldn't be red. I do not think that's going to happen. I'm just saying that as a hypothetical, but in my opinion I think it is safe to say Bitcoin is not going to pump up to 38,500 by tomorrow. I do believe that we are going to close in a red cycle. Now why is this historically important? Because like I said, the most amount of consecutive red candles on the weekly we've had in Bitcoin's history since it started trading in 2009 was 5 red candles, and after the 5th red candle, what did we do in the 6th week? Well, obviously if we've got 5 consecutive red candles and that's the world record, then obviously the 6th week had to be in the green, otherwise we'd have 6. So that is reason number 1 why I do think Bitcoin could be pumping into next week. Reason number 2 is the weekly EMA ribbons have just flipped bearish, so it would make sense to come up to, you know, 40,000, 41,000 next week, test them as resistance before we do come down to lower price targets. My personal thesis is that we would be moving up and then moving down to 33,000. And before I jump into the Nasdaq, let me just show you, I made a video about this as well, but if we look, you can see this would be predicting this fractal pattern, this triple bottom fractal pattern would be predicting Bitcoin to bottom around about the 33 to 34,000 level. Not only that, but the Bitcoin logarithmic growth curves historically always bottom at 1 deviation oversold. Where is 1 deviation oversold at this moment in time? 32,500, basically 35,000. So there's a plethora of reasons why in the macro term I do think 33,000 will be the bottom. However, that does not mean that next week we can't pump up to you know, I've drawn it too far because I'm just, you know, drawing random lines on the screen, but I wouldn't see it impossible that next week we could pump up to 40,000, 41,000 before rolling over down to the 33,000 level. Now, what is one other theory that does support this pump and roll over in the market? Now, this is when the Nasdaq comes into hand, and historically, if you look at the Nasdaq on the daily, I want to show you these price gaps before we do run into the content. So let me mark these orange so we can differentiate from these 2 price gaps right here. If we go back, you can see price gap on the Nasdaq. Obviously this is the stock market, so the stock market doesn't trade over the weekend, so we have these price gaps over the weekend where it opens at a different price. At least most of the time it opens at a different price. If not almost all the time, it opens at a slightly higher or slightly lower price. You can see what happened when we had this price gap here. Well, we pumped up and we came all the way back down and filled the gap. What happened to the price gap before that? You can see there was a price gap here. Well, we were pumping up that week, but the next couple of weeks we broke down and filled this price gap. So 2 gaps filled. You can see a double gap right here. What did we do? We came down, and what did we do? We pumped all the way up just to fill these gaps, and then we rolled all the way back down the hill. I have made another video on the price gaps on the Nasdaq before, an extensive overview of the past 30 times that this has happened, so I'm not going to be proving my point for the next 10 minutes, just showing you that we always do fill these price gaps. If you do search on my channel and type in Nasdaq price gap theory, you will find that video where I microdose the past 30 to 40 data points, and there is only 2 price gaps which have currently not been filled. Can you guess where they are? Yes, that's right, these 2 that we circled at the start of the video. Well, these have been circled for a while actually. They were circled when I did my Nasdaq price gap theory, and this was probably a week or 2 ago, maybe a week ago actually. But nonetheless, what do we always see? We always see we've got these price gaps, and it doesn't matter how far the market moves the Nasdaq down, the Nasdaq always moves back up to fill the gaps every single time without fail. You can see, close a gap, come down, take it out. We always do this. You've got a gap, but we're breaking bearish, no problem. We'll break back bullish for a couple of weeks, fill the gap, and then break bearish straight away. So the Nasdaq seems to support this theory of mine that we could be pumping up, we could be having a rally. What could this mean for the Nasdaq over the next week? Well, this would specifically have to entail a 17% increase in the Nasdaq for us to be able to fill both these price gaps. Now, that does seem rather euphoric. How quickly have we previously had these pumps from lows to highs? Well, we've had 17% pumps before, and how long did it take? It took 11 days, so it took 1 week, and then coming into the last 3 days is when we broke bearish. So you can see we could break bullish for 1 week, and then we could do something like break up, and then we'd be beneath the EMA ribbons, about 41,000 or 41,000. 41,000 to 40,000 in my opinion is where we could potentially see a move up to. And then what could happen? Well, we could put in something like a doji candle. Maybe we're 1% down on the week, 1% up, and then we could roll down to 33,000, which not only does this fractal predict that the bottom is, but the Bitcoin logarithmic growth curves also predict the bottom is. So that is all I wanted to run through in today's video. I thought this was a very interesting theory, and historically, you know, putting Bitcoin out of the picture, the Nasdaq price gaps do normally not lie. If you're betting against a move on the Nasdaq, against it filling the price gaps, over 9 times out of 10 you're going to get wrecked. Like I said, over 9 times out of 10 you're going to get wrecked. Like I said in my previous Nasdaq videos, we did 30 or 40 data points, and so far these are the only 2 data points that we did not fill. So very interesting theory here. I think we're going to pump into next week and then dump the next week. What does that mean? That means, at least in my opinion, I think within the next month or so, we will be down here bottoming at the lower logarithmic growth curves bounds, and this could also mean that this triple bottom fractal could be playing out, and we could be going into another bull market rally. I would like to see how this reacts. I think there's a lot of variables right now, like the Fed increasing the interest rates. I think it all depends on what happens next month. If the Fed keeps on increasing the interest rates 50 basis points a month, which is 0.5% to combat inflation and shrink their Federal Reserve balance sheet, then, you know, we could very much enter a bearish phase, and this fractal may not play out. But at least in my opinion, this video was what is going to go on in the next week, and I do think we are going to rally into next week. That is all I've got for today's video. Remember, this is a weekly video. If you see Bitcoin coming down into Monday or Tuesday, that doesn't mean that we can't pump up until Sunday and then close bullish. So keep an eye on this. This is going to be on the weekly time frame, and I will update you next week how this theory does play out, and we'll check what goes on, because I might be tempted to put in some longs this week for Bitcoin if we do start moving up. I do think this is a pretty solid theory, but like I said, I'd want to see how the stock market opens on Monday. I'll be updating you on Monday as well. If you need those type of updates for the stock market, the crypto market, Bitcoin, alternative theories on Bitcoin using logarithmic growth curves, alternative theories using Bitcoin fractals, I'm your channel. All I've got for you today, cowboy out, not financial advice, and most importantly, peace.